Hello folks, and welcome to another video. So I was recently on the UK blog tour for Fractal Noise by Paolini. This released on the 16th of May, I do believe, and my tour spot on Instagram is on the 30th of May. So if you'd like to check that out and support over on a wide variety of outlets, then please feel free to do so. My Instagram is always down below, but it is HardcoreCupcakeHailstorm for ease of access. I thought I'd come on here and share my thoughts and review of this beautiful little novel. So I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars, I believe, and we are following the same universe of To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. So it's the fractal universe that we're still set in, but I believe this is around 70 years prior to the events of To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. Basically we're following a small scientific team as they journey throughout the planet exploring different areas. They land on Talos 7, I believe. I'm really bad at my Roman numerals. To look at this anomaly. There's basically a giant hole, but it looks too perfect, and it's creating these waves of sound that seems to, it must have a rhyme and reason to it. So it's basically like a first contact science fiction horror, I would say, thriller horror, and basically they then deploy a smaller number of the scientific team to go down onto the planet and try and, you know, collect data, find out if there are any alien artifacts there, if they're sentient, that sort of thing, what's going on. One of the characters that's in that small group to go and investigate Talos 7 is Alex Crichton, and he is a xenobiologist, and he is going through a lot of grief at the moment. His wife had tragically passed away recently, and he's in these feelings of apathy, really. He can't find a reason to live anymore. He's kind of just going through the motions, loosely kind of following the lead of his wife's memory, who's also a xenobiologist and just had this thrive of the unknown and, you know, finding meaning in things. So he's sort of got that loose thread that pulls him along until something really sparks in him. And he is the character that we're in the headspace of for the entirety of this book. Much smaller than To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, but it nonetheless packs a mean punch. So on the back it just says, it's a tense journey into the unknown on an alien planet. A small group of scientists will experience first contact, a discovery as terrifying as it is exhilarating, and humanity will never be alone again. Paolini is one of those auto-authors, so I was really excited when the first book first came out. I was a little bit wary and apprehensive because I didn't read much sci-fi at the time, let alone adult sci-fi, and I'd obviously known and loved him from the Aragon books, which were highly fantasy, so I didn't know how I was going to feel from this switch in direction, but I loved it. So when this one came out, I was like, okay, I am super excited. To Sleep in a Sea of Stars blew me away. It was a behemoth to read, but well worth it. I was feeling graced basically by the promise of 2 new books this year, being Fractal Noise and Murtagh, which is in the Inheritance Cycle series. So yeah, I was excited to just devour anything and everything that he brought out this year. I would say this is part character study on grief and apathy, part thriller and suspense, part first contact horror, and basically this is a novel that kept me tense throughout the whole duration, on the edge of my seat, almost a sickness feeling, like I felt a bit ill reading this because it just felt so tense and it was so longed out that my body couldn't get into a rest state. I think what worked best was this constant thud that we had. This sound that the black hole kept bringing out was a thud, and it built up and worked upon this already underlying tension that we had between the group. It's no secret that this small group of scientists that leave the Adamura, which is the ship that they all the scientists are on to begin with, do not like each other. No one really gets on, nobody really has any common ground or friendships or loyalties with each other. It kind of grows into a hostility and an animosity between them all. You know, imagine a small group of people, you know, tightly contained with each other for a long period of time. It's going to get tense, it's going to get uncomfortable, and situations do arise where you worry, you really worry for people's lives. So it does get really tense, and I think, as I say, the thud that keeps slowly building throughout this, it almost feels like you can hear it, and it adds to that tension, knowing that these characters can't not hear that and feel that. It's a lot, and I felt like I was really in that headspace. It really kind of just plays with your emotions, and I couldn't stop thinking like what was around the next corner. At a glance I can see how some may say that nothing really happens in this story. It is a short story, but it is a slow and detailed one that explores questions of morality and mortality, and makes you think about the hard questions of life. So yeah, nothing super high action or exciting takes place in that regard, but it was a mentally taxing novel, an emotive novel, and one that leaves you thinking and spiraling almost. I found this especially so as we got more time with our core group that was on Talos 7, exploring this anomaly of the giant hole, and got to learn more about their beliefs and motives for joining the mission in the first place, a bit of their backstory, and again more so with Alex being in the headspace that he was, in deep grief, in apathy, and you know, just finding it life really challenging already, kind of seeing what he took from the whole experience and from his communications, little though they were, with the other members of his team. It almost led me into an existential crisis and had me spiraling, as I say. Like, it was such a dark place to be in his mind, but it wasn't without hope. Like, it never was without hope. And I like that in the author's note, Paolini does mention that originally this book was far darker, but he never wants to be the author to write depressing stuff and make someone feel shit for no reason, you know. So he changed it around and put more hope in there, I think, but it is still a very dark story, I would say. The thuds, as I said, they felt visceral, felt low-key sick with apprehension and distrust, and I wanted it to be over, but I thoroughly enjoyed that feeling. The conversations on grief and a sense of drifting with no purpose, this apathy that Alex had throughout the entirety of the novel, really hit me super hard. But I think that Alex can be such a relatable character to many readers. People that have experienced really low points in their life, have gone through major grief in any way, will definitely connect with him. Even though it's not a nice headspace to be in, it's one that you can sympathise with and empathise with. Even if you haven't necessarily had that major loss yourself, you can still feel for him. But I think it made it that much more visceral to have experience of something similar like that. I was underwhelmed by the conclusion, I've got to say. I didn't exactly know where I thought the story was going to go in its finale, but I was kind of expecting something more, and it did a lot. Like the themes that I mentioned earlier, you know, the grief and all that sort of stuff, it did a lot. It made you think about some heavy detailed topics and questions that you might not necessarily think about in your day-to-day life. But I don't know, I thought there would be more of a, I guess, explosive ending, and I don't really want to say much more than that because I don't want to give it away, but it wasn't as explosive as I was expecting. Reading Fractal Noise has put me in an off-kilter kind of mindset as an outcome. It was a fascinating read that definitely delivered perfect atmosphere, but it was a heavy one, and I think I am glad that it definitely was shorter than To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, because wow, it was deep, but it was beautiful, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I do have a couple quotes, so I'm just going to read one of them. I think I'll read one from the front. So as I mentioned earlier, Alex's wife passed away, so this is a segment that includes the urn that she's in. So he noticed the weight of the urn. It rested heavily in his hands, pulling him toward the floor, toward the ground, and the end of all things. He didn't mind. A life should have weight, old or young. It would have seemed wrong for a person's ashes to be too light. So that is it for my review of Fractal Noise by Christopher Paolini. I want to say thank you to Black Crow PR, UK Tour and Pam Macmillan for sending me a copy to join the book tour. I really enjoyed my time with this book and got a lot of questions to think about whilst in this world. Yeah, I'm looking forward to more in the Fractalverse series, and hopefully we can get some more relatively soon, but we shall see, we shall see. Anyway, you guys will have to let me know if you've picked up this, if you've read any of the Fractalverse books so far. I reckon you could read them in any order so far. This is a prequel, but they're all kind of standalones. But yeah, I'm looking forward to more for sure. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I shall catch you in another video soon. Bye!